Today I want to share an advanced strategy that really top entrepreneurs use to make millions. It's not a strategy that is widely shared and very few people talk about it. Even when I was preparing for this, I was thinking, should I even share this for free? Because this is the type of stuff people do masterminds for and they spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 learning this. It's the type of information that really only moves in the top circles of entrepreneurship. But I'm going to share it freely with you today. And as I was preparing for this video, I was genuinely thinking I should just exclusively do this. I should stop everything else that I'm doing and just do this strategy because it really is that powerful, and more to the point, it's really of the moment. We're talking about the world of mergers and acquisitions for small business. Now that may make your eyes just glaze over and you think, oh, I cannot possibly do that. That's beyond my pay grade. I'm not sure how that works. It sounds boring. I promise you it's going to make you millions and it's going to be easily accessible. I'm going to give you a 6-step framework that is going to make this totally accessible to you as an entrepreneur. Now, is it an entry-level strategy? Absolutely not. It's not something you can do if you're really early in your journey, but it's worth being aware of. This is more a strategy for someone who has 10, 15 years worth of business experience. You've got a good network, you've got some credibility, you've got a little bit of a personal brand building. This is totally accessible to you, and this is where you'll make a lot of money. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is why this is a particularly interesting strategy for now. See, here's the thing. In summertime, it's fun to play tennis, and in wintertime, it's fun to go skiing. It's not fun to play tennis in the winter, and it's not fun to try and go skiing in the summer. When the economy is in summertime, it's really fun to try and grow businesses and start businesses, but it's really hard to grow businesses and start businesses when the economy is gloomy. In the wintertime of the economy, it's a really good thing to be doing mergers and acquisitions and these kind of deals. Now, we are definitely heading into a wintertime economy. A lot of businesses are doing it tough. The economy has slowed right down, especially in places like the UK. High taxes, high regulations have ground things to a halt, and a lot of businesses are doing it tough. That makes it perfect for an entrepreneurial winter sport, which is mergers and acquisitions. So, the framework that I'm going to give you is from my own personal experience. I've done multiple deals like this before, and it's also from the experience of my wealthiest friends. The wealthiest entrepreneurs that I know are doing deals. In fact, if you read the biographies of some of the absolute top entrepreneurs, the turning points in their lives were when they structured mergers or acquisition deals. We all think that entrepreneurship is about marketing and growth and operations, but in many cases, it's about M&A deals and getting those deals done, and these can be life-changing. So let me introduce you to the high level of the 6-step framework first, and then we're going to go into each part. Part 1 is finding a deal. That's where you're going to go out and find a company that you can buy. Part 2 is pitching them a deal so that they sell you their business. Part 3 is agreeing a seller finance agreement with that person so they become the bank and finance you into their business. Part 4 is where you improve the business in some way. Part 5 is where you pitch the business to sell to a new acquirer. Part 6 is where you provide seller finance to that acquirer so you become the bank and they take on the business. So let's go into finding a deal. At the moment, we have a really interesting situation. 22.5% of businesses are owned by people over the age of 65. In the UK, that comes in at 1.35 million business owners are 65 plus. In the USA, that's almost 7 million businesses are 65 plus. Now, what happens when someone has owned a business for decades and they're over age 65 is that they start thinking about retirement and they want to get rid of that business. Here's a typical scenario. A person had a business that had a high watermark of 2 million of revenue, but it's now down to about 1 million of revenue. It's in decline. The margins have gone from 20 to 30% down to maybe 10%. The team is now running on fumes. They're not motivated, they're not excited, they're probably approaching retirement age themselves. The systems are outdated, the marketing materials are non-existent. This is a business that is trading on its old reputation and it's desperately in need of some new energy. This is not a rare situation. This is a common situation. Now, let me take it one step further. The owner of this business is independently wealthy. They've paid off their house. They have no mortgage. They also have other investments. They have a pension. They have an investment property. They're doing pretty well independently. And this business is now a distraction that they just don't need. This person has been telling their spouse that they're planning on retiring, and it's been dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. Their spouse is saying, when are you going to close the business? When are you going to get rid of the business? But they feel guilty about closing it because it's been their work for the last 2 decades. This person wants to spend quality time with their grandchildren. They don't want to be spending 8 hours a day in this business anymore. They want to be spending 8 hours a day running around with the grandkids, having quality time before those kids grow up. The stage is set. Millions of entrepreneurs want to move on from their business, and many of these businesses are doing 7-figure revenue with 6-figure profit, and they're good quality businesses that have just been neglected. Now, your job as a younger entrepreneur with more energy is to find one of these businesses and go and talk to the founder about taking it over. Is that going to be easy? Absolutely not. That's not going to fall in your lap. But is there any form of marketing or lead generation that is just super easy? Absolutely not. In your business that you currently run, you do all sorts of things to generate leads. And if you were looking for this kind of business, you'd do the same thing. You'd have a lead generation approach, you'd do some outbound marketing, you'd do some content marketing, you'd do some cold messaging and cold calling, you'd do all of the same things that you do in your current business to find this type of opportunity. You are going to have to look at 20 to 30 deals to find the one that you feel really comfortable doing. Now, when you're in conversation and you've found that bored baby boomer business owner, this is where you're going to build some rapport and pitch them a great opportunity. Now, what kind of businesses are you going to find here? They're typically boring businesses. A typical boring business might be a local print shop. A boring business might be some sort of landscape gardening business, or it might be some sort of blue collar trade business. It might be an IT services business or a professional services business. This could be a little business that does engineering and architecture projects. It could be something to do with heating or cooling. It could be a small publisher or an agency. There are so many little businesses that fit this description. If you were to walk through any office park or technology park in any small town across the UK or the USA, you're going to find dozens of these little businesses littered all over the map. Now, the reason they can't get rid of this business is because it's a boring business. Their kids, they don't want to take over that business. They want to do something big and exciting. It's often the case that these little businesses do 7 figures of revenue and 6 figures of profit when they're firing on all cylinders. And with your energy behind it, why couldn't they even double from there? The key is to not go looking for one of these businesses, but to go looking for 30 of these businesses. Make a long list. Don't be too precious. Go in there and see if you can tee up meetings with 20 to 30 people who fit this description. These could be online Zoom meetings, they could be phone calls, but start having meetings with people who fit this description. Eventually, you're going to find that one person who really stands out as a great opportunity for you. Maybe it fits with your existing business, and now you can move to step 2. Step 2 is you're going to pitch a deal where you're going to take over this business and you're going to grow it and run it. There are 3 main things that you're going to talk about in that pitch. The value of the business, what value do you put on it? The terms by which you're going to buy that business, and the team who's going to come in and run it, and the plan that you're going to put in place. Those are the 3 big things that get people's attention. People want to sell their business to a great team who've got a plan, they want to get a good value, and they want to be able to negotiate terms that work for them. Now, here's the really exciting thing about a baby boomer who owns a business if they're independently wealthy. If they're independently wealthy and they don't need upfront capital, they're going to be really flexible on those terms. So I want to use an example where we're going to just say the value of this business is going to be 1 million. And we're not going to negotiate too hard on that. We're going to say that it's $1 million value for argument's sake. But instead of paying all of that up front, it's going to be paid out over 5 years. Right? So it's going to be a 5-year payment term, which means that this person is going to receive money every single month over 5 years rather than getting the $1 million up front. But if they agree to be the bank and they agree to a 5-year deal, they'll also earn interest on top of that. And the thing that we're going to talk about this team is we're going to have key people of influence plus a really cool executive team or suppliers, and we're going to put a 5-year plan in place. And the 5-year plan that you're going to put in place is going to give them a lot of comfort and assurance that they're going to get paid out over the next 5 years. They're going to trust your brand, your reputation, and your suppliers. They're going to trust your 5-year forecast and your 5-year business plan. And they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to get my $1 million, but I'm going to get it over 5 years rather than getting it up front. So that's going to be the essence of your pitch. Now, in order for that pitch to be accepted, they have to agree to become the bank and to do something called seller finance. Let's explain how that might work. So when it comes to seller finance, there's a few key things that we have to look at. There's the deposit, which is the amount that gets paid up front. In this case, we're going to say that it's 0 up front. There's the interest rate that we're going to pay on the $1 million that we're financing. And we're going to say that we're happy with 5% to keep it nice round numbers. There's the principal that is being financed. In this case, it's $1 million. There's something called a balloon payment, which is at the end of 5 years, will there be an outstanding amount that balloons, right? It could be as much as half, so it could be 500,000. It could be 0, which means the whole million gets paid out across the 5 years. Or it could be a smaller amount like 200,000. Let's put 200,000 is the final payout on the end of the 5 years. And then there's the monthly payments. So those monthly payments is how much The seller gets every single month by becoming the bank, and it's based upon these conditions here. So for example, if the entire $1 million was financed, it comes out at close to $20,000 a month. But if half that amount was a balloon payment, it comes out at more like 10 grand a month. And if we did an aggressive deal that was interest only, it would be just over $4,000 a month. That would imply 100% balloon where the $1 million gets paid out at the end of the 5 years. And that would assume an aggressive deal where the full $1 million gets paid out as the balloon at the end of the 5 years. But for argument's sake, let's say that we've agreed to do 0 upfront, 5% interest, $1 million principal, 200,000 balloon, and the payments are going to be something like $15,000 a month. And ideally, what we've discovered is that this business can afford $15,000 a month, although it wouldn't be profitable if there was no growth. Now, before we move on, put yourself into the seller's shoes. This is a person who wants to move on with their life. They want to spend time with the grandkids, and now they're getting an opportunity to earn $15,000 a month without having to show up to work. It's not a bad deal. You might be sitting there going, but surely they want the $1 million. Surely they want to sell the business for a lump sum of cash. Well, maybe they do, but is anyone offering that? In most cases, nobody's offering $1 million upfront in cash. Most people feel entirely stuck and trapped in their business. They don't have anyone wanting to buy it. Here you come along and you're offering a deal where they're earning $15,000 a month to go away and do the things they want to do. Even though you might think that you wouldn't accept the deal, if you were at this stage of life, you might accept the deal because it really allows you to do the things that are more important. You've also got to remember that this is probably a business that is in decline. The high watermark 10 years ago was probably double where it is today. So because the business is in decline, it's incredibly difficult to sell, especially for an upfront amount. And finally, I would say this, most of these people are not actively seeking a buyer. They've never sold a business before. They know how to run a business, but they've never sold a business. And the fact that you've come along, presented them with the deal, and you've thought through all of these elements makes it incredibly enticing. They've now got a deal in their lap and they've got to go back to their spouse and say, do we accept this or do we reject this? And it's pretty painful to turn this away. So now you've been able to agree seller finance, it's time to take over the business and to do some improvements. And I'm going to recommend 3 big improvements that you should make. Improvement number 1 is to become the key person of influence for this business, to use your brand and reputation to funnel people over to this business, to be the figurehead, to record some videos, to do some walkthroughs, to create some social media accounts, to go and interview some of the key clients and capture those video case studies and testimonials, to set up an Instagram account, to set up a LinkedIn profile, right? Become the key person of influence. If you're watching this channel, you know that a personal brand has 20 times more impact than a business brand. I guarantee you there's a high chance that this business is trading purely on its business brand. And just by adding a front-facing key person of influence, you're going to 20x the amount of exposure that this business could get. The fact that it's under new management by someone who's fresh and energetic is going to re-enliven the business. It's going to bring new energy and it's going to bring new attention. And that attention will turn into money. So the first thing I want you to do is become a key person of influence for the business, the driving force. The second thing I'm going to recommend is a massive focus on demand generation over supply. See, what I've learned about a lot of businesses as they settle into decline is that they focus purely and simply on the supply side of the business. They look after their existing contracts, but they don't go out to trade shows. They don't deliver workshops. They don't create online content. They're not running any ads. They're not doing all of the things that built the business. They're just doing the things to look after their existing client base. As soon as you go out and put a bit of a demand side focus on this business, it starts to go back into growth. I know one example where a business had gone from 4 million down to 750,000. Under closer inspection, the acquirer discovered that when they were doing 4 million, they were going to one trade show every quarter, and they stopped going to those trade shows and the business went into decline. As soon as they started re-attending those trade shows, getting a booth, meeting customers, doing the work of going out and meeting people, the business started tracking back towards the 4 million. It was as simple as just going back to the trade shows that had built the business in the first place. And the third thing that I want you to do is to digitize the business. Now, the truth is that most baby boomer run businesses are not running as optimally as they could be on digital. A lot of the time they don't have YouTube channels. They don't have CRM systems that are working as good as they could be. They don't have automated systems. They're probably not using AI. There's many different digital systems that could make that business run much more efficiently. And if you start putting those digital systems in, not only will the business run more efficiently, but some new talent will come into the business as well, because young, talented, energetic people don't want to work with outdated systems. They want to work with the latest systems. Now, I know an example of someone who bought a business, and when they walked into the office, all of the receipts were on one spike and all of the accounts payable were on another spike, and they were able to automate all of that and take a 4-person accounts team down to a 1-person accounts team with some basic software. I've seen examples where businesses that do $1 million per quarter have almost no web presence at all. Their website is 10 years out of date. They have no social media presence. There's absolutely nothing going on. They're just trading off the historical reputation of the business. A little bit of digital that's not expensive can make a massive difference to growing the business. Step 4 is that you're going to make some improvements that take a declining business into a growing business. And as soon as you can show the growth, you can start moving to step 5. Okay, so step 5 is we're going to find an acquirer. We're going to go out and find a really great company who's going to buy this business. Now, here's something interesting that I've discovered. I've discovered that a lot of baby boomers who run these businesses and want to sell them someday have actually not really been out there to sell the business. In most cases, they haven't produced a pitch deck, they haven't produced a data room, they haven't produced any financials, they haven't put together a forward-looking financial forecast for the business. They've done none of the things that would attract an acquirer. They've said that they're going to sell the business someday, but they haven't taken any real action on this. Now, as soon as the business is growing, we can start forecasting for the next 5 years based on that growth, and we can start building an exciting story. We can create a slide deck, we can create an investor pack, we can put all of that information into a data room, and we can start approaching some of the bigger and more exciting businesses in this industry. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and take the business out, and we're going to try and change these 3 things from where they were before. So rather than the value being 1 million, we're going to try and get that value up to 2 million. Rather than the terms to buy the business being 5 years, we're going to try and get an earnout period of less than 3 years. And rather than pitching our team, we're going to pitch their team to take it over, but we're going to give them a strategic plan. So when we go to this bigger business that is going to be a strategic acquirer, we're going to say to them that we're selling a business for 2 million, we're prepared to do a 3-year earnout, and we have a strategic plan that under their leadership and under their resources will actually make this business wildly profitable and wildly valuable to them. And the key thing is that we want to show them that if they buy the business for 2 million, in 3 years' time, it'll be worth 4 million to them. All of that can be expressed using external consultants to produce business plans, slide decks, and financial forecasts that attract that acquirer in a more professional way. Now, here's something really fun. One of the ways you've improved the business is by establishing yourself as a key person of influence. And one thing you can include in the deal is for you to continue to be the key person of influence for a fee. So you might sell the company, but still earn $5,000 or $10,000 per quarter to do filming or to do key events and to still be that key person of influence while they do the handover to their business. They might see that as a really attractive opportunity, and it's a deal that happens on top of the sale of the business. Now, the person who's done this many, many times is actually Richard Branson. Richard Branson has sold multiple Virgin companies, and he has a way of being the face of the business in exchange for a day rate. Now, all of this gets even better for the acquirer because of step 6, which is you being willing to be the seller financer, you're willing to be the bank. So in step 6, what you're going to do is set up yourself as the seller financer, but you're going to do this on better terms than the ones that you originally agreed. So for example, on the $2 million purchase price, you're going to have a deposit of, let's say, $200,000. So the acquirer has to put $200,000 down to secure the deal, which realistically, a 10% deposit is not a lot to buy a business. The interest rate, you might keep that the same. You might say it's 5%, but now the principal is going to be 1.8 million, which is the outstanding amount after they've paid the deposit. Now, if the seller decides to pay all of that 1.8 million over 3 years, it comes in at about 50,000 a month. And if they want to have a 900,000 balloon at the end of 3 years, it comes in at about 25,000 per month. So imagine a situation where you've been able to buy a business and you're paying monthly payments of 10 to 15,000 a month, and now you're getting monthly payments of 25,000 per month, and you're keeping the difference. Now, what can actually happen is that a lot of sellers are sitting on cash, they're bigger businesses, you've presented them with a deal, you've presented them with all the documentation that they like to do the deal, they can actually have independent financing options that have nothing to do with you, and they can refinance this at any time. So it's often the case that you could actually pick up the entire uplift as you exit the company. But let's call that a bonus. In a real world situation, What you've done is you've arbitraged, where you've bought a business for $1 million, but you've had seller finance, you've made some improvements, you've sold the business for $2 million, and now you've become the bank and you get to keep the difference. Now it still gets paid over 3 to 5 years, but that's 3 to 5 years that you can enjoy the difference of that $1 million that you created as uplift. Now I've given you this example with round numbers of $1 million, but this is an example that could actually work with a small purchase of a little business for 200 grand, right up to a much bigger business of maybe $5 million. In the small business space, mergers and acquisitions are very, very rare, and the deals go to people who know how to structure those deals. I've given you an overview framework. You can use ChatGPT or talk to some professionals in order to pad this out and go deeper on each of those 6 steps. But you already get the idea. This is a key way to make serious money. Now, one of the things that makes this whole thing work is that you've got a brand as a key person of influence. The truth is that a lot hinges on that. Every single deal that you do, somebody's going to Google you. Not only is the business owner who's selling the business going to Google you, their spouse is going to Google you. The acquirer is also going to Google you. If you don't show up as a key person of influence, then the deal can start to fall apart at the seams. It's very important, if you want to do deals like this, that you've built your online reputation. One of the things that opens up as a great opportunity for our key person of influence accelerator clients is these kind of deals. Now, if you haven't done so already, join me for a 90-minute workshop where we talk about developing your brand as a key person of influence so that you can grow your existing business and do deals like these. There'll be a link below that allows you to book into the 90-minute workshop that I've got coming up soon. Now, maybe you're a business owner and you're only doing 200, 300, 400,000 a year, and you think, oh, maybe I should do this in 3 or 4 years' time. Well, great, bookmark this video and come back to it. But I will say this, it's totally possible to do what's called David versus Goliath deals. David and Goliath deals are where a small business goes and buys a much bigger business. I've seen many situations where a younger person who's running a 300 grand a year business can go out and buy a bigger business that's doing 3 million, and they can 10x their business by simply doing one of these deals. Youth is power, energy is power, vitality beats functionality. Now, these are some of the things that will allow you to leverage those assets that you've got as a key person of influence with lots of fuel in the tank. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a bit of an advanced strategy, some bigger thinking, but if you've enjoyed this, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a subscribe, and maybe forward this to an entrepreneur who could go out and do a deal like this. Go be brave, go have fun, go make a big dent in the universe, and I look forward to seeing you soon.